is with us. I would like to mention that everyone who's online, whether they be members of the committee or witnesses, they have successfully passed the sound check. So all is good there. We have with us from ALIS, Brian, is it Gilvesi or Gilvesi? You're on mute, so I didn't hear that.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Okay. We have with us in person Mr. Ralph Pentland, and we have also online Ms. Zita Botello from Watersheds BC. We'll start with Mr. Yes.
Can you just maybe update everybody where the minister is today?
I don't know where he is. I'm assuming that he's on his way to. Where's the Dubai?
Okay. Okay.
I mean, that's what I assume.
We've asked for him here, so he obviously he's not listening in today. So okay.
Yeah, but he has confirmed that he can come. I'll bring this up when we do future business. But yeah. So we'll start with Mr. Gilvesi for 5 minutes, please, for an opening statement. The floor is yours.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, for inviting me to speak today. I'm a farmer and a rancher in Norfolk County, Ontario, as well as the CEO of the only farmer-led, community-based charitable organization in Canada delivering nature-based solutions. ALIS has been implementing one of the most effective and scalable solutions to water quality protection for nearly 2 decades. We build and restore natural infrastructure or natural systems on marginal or uneconomic farmland to provide solutions. So I come to you today bringing an agricultural solution to Canada's freshwater priorities. The agricultural sector both relies on and affects freshwater resources in Canada. The decline in Canada's inventory of natural assets like wetland and forest has removed critical infrastructure that helps protect water quality from activities that affect freshwater systems. Without sufficient natural infrastructure, we see the following impacts on water quality. Soil erosion and sedimentation can harm aquatic plants and wildlife and creates an environment favorable to the development of algae blooms and pathogens. Runoff of nutrients, pesticides, organic matter, and pathogens threaten aquatic life, drinking water systems, and our food supply. Natural infrastructure built by farmers and ranchers on their working landscape reduces nutrient from entering freshwater systems, thereby preventing harmful algae blooms. It reduces soil erosion and sedimentation from waterways. It slows water flow and increases absorption of water to reduce flood risk, and supports groundwater recharge for increased water security for both upstream and downstream communities. Wetlands restored by farmers help manage rising watercourse levels by slowing water flows, as well as support groundwater recharge by capturing and absorbing excess water. It also protects food security by reducing the effects of severe weather, as well as enhancing wildlife habitat to support birds, pollinators, and other beneficial insects and insectivores. ALIS knows the solution is at the grassroots because it has supported over 1,600 Canadian farmers and ranchers in building nature-based solutions that enhance natural infrastructure on their lands to protect water quality and quantity, including restoring and or creating tens of thousands of acres of wetland habitat. Our network is driven through 40 community partners that provide the grassroots leadership that our program demands. We now operate in 6 provinces. ALIS has quantified freshwater benefits produced by our projects in 4 Ontario watersheds and proven that ALIS projects deliver positive results for water quality. With support from RBC Tech for Nature, ALIS modeled water-based outcomes across 4 watersheds within the Lake Erie Basin in Ontario has been done. The project demonstrated the effectiveness of nature-based projects on ALIS farms in reducing nutrient from entering watercourses that feed into Lake Erie, with the largest benefits coming from restored or created wetlands. We've demonstrated how the agricultural community can deliver effective solutions to freshwater quality concerns across the country. ALIS and its network of farmers are standing ready to scale its efforts and to deliver measurable water quality outcomes through nature-based solutions on marginal farmlands for the benefit of all Canadians. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gilvesi. We'll go now to Mr. Pentland for 5 minutes, or for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd also like to thank the committee for undertaking this study and also for the opportunity to meet with you today. I'm just going to start with a few words about a 7-page submission that you received from the Forum for Leadership on Water, or FLOW, a little while ago. FLOW is made up of about a dozen volunteers from across Canada who have been collaborating on water policy analysis and advice for over 15 years. My own background in the water field goes back over 60 years, 30 years in the federal government and 30 years in a combination of consulting and volunteering in Canada and about half a dozen other countries. Over those 60 years, I've observed a lot of major changes in both water issues and in conventional wisdom about how we should deal with them. When I first started working in the field, the sole emphasis was on economic development. Around 1970, we had the water pollution crisis, and we added an environmental component. And by the time the federal water policy was issued in 1987, we were trying to reconcile economic and environmental values through sustainable development concepts. Those three phases are all still works in progress, and we're now in the early stages of introducing a variety of rights into the equation. And at the same time, we're trying to cope with the very serious implications of a changing climate. The FLOW submission takes both the evolving issues and the evolving conventional wisdom into account and suggests 16 priority areas which we believe are ripe for significant progress in the coming years. The criteria for setting these priorities are really, first, that there is an issue of national significance, and second, that there is potential to do something about them in the coming years. As short-term priorities, say over the next 5 years, we speak to the Canada Water Agency, collaboration, Canada-US waters, Indigenous drinking water, flood damage reduction, climate change adaptation, water prediction, river basin priorities, water data, and water research. As medium-term priorities, say over the next 10 years, we speak to legislative renewal, chemicals management, water apportionment, and principles for the watershed approach. Finally, as a long-term priority, say beyond 10 years, and I don't know how far into the future, we speak to, we foresee evolving social justice principles being incorporated more fulsomely into water management decisions. So I think I'll just leave it at that, and I welcome any questions the committee members may have on our submission or any other topic that you may wish to raise with me. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Pentland.
Thank you, Mr. Pentland. And we will now turn to Ms. Botello.
Bonjour, Monsieur Président.
Hello, Chair and members of the committee.
To speak with you as part of this important study on freshwater. My name is Zita Botello, and I am the Director of Watersheds BC. I'm calling in from the unceded territories of the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. Since 2021, Watersheds BC has been working in partnership with 2 philanthropic organizations to help deliver $42 million of BC provincial funding that has supported 110 watershed security-related projects across BC. I need to start by identifying a problem that over the last 15 years, the federal government has been weakly engaged in freshwater issues in BC. Recognizing the diversity of freshwater challenges across the country, BC continues to see little federal engagement relative to other regions. Today, I'm here to talk to you about a win-win-win opportunity for the federal government. The conditions in BC are both urgent and optimal for the federal government to actively collaborate with the province of BC, the NGO community, and First Nations. I'll speak to 4 conditions that offer an opportunity for the federal government to demonstrate leadership that will yield substantial economic benefits, drive employment transitions, uplift rural and remote communities, advance UNDRIP implementation, and importantly, address the escalating costs of climate impacts. Firstly, the BC government has put skin in the game. Since 2021, it has invested $57 million in funding watershed security projects. In March of 2022, the BC government committed an additional $100 million to establish an endowment for a watershed security fund. This fund is being co-developed with the First Nations Water Caucus to create a governance and implementation framework for a long-term sustainable fund. BC has seen the benefits of their investments and this is an immediate opportunity for the federal government to invest $400 million over 4 years to match BC's initial investment. These BC investments have primed the pumps and cleared the pathway for delivering impact and results. Secondly, let's delve into the economic potential that investing in watershed security can unlock. There's a prime opportunity to create jobs and employment transitions. The Healthy Watersheds Initiative Major Outcomes Report shared that $20 million in federal funding, resulted in 1,273 direct jobs across BC. More recently, through the Indigenous Watersheds Initiative, 103 jobs are being supported by 14 projects, with 62% of jobs being held by community members. We estimate that IWI will support approximately 245 jobs, many in remote and rural Indigenous communities. These investments are supporting jobs that focus on monitoring and assessment, Indigenous knowledges and land-based learning, planning and governance, fisheries and food sovereignty, restoration and protection. Thirdly, let's consider the pressing issue of climate impacts and the costs associated with them. You likely need no reminder of the devastating atmospheric river that hit BC in October of 2021, or the record wildfire and droughts of 2023. The 2021 floods cost was $9 billion. Yesterday, BC's finance minister reported that the cost of this year's wildfire budget is $987 million, and that figure doesn't include the cost to individuals, businesses, and communities. The resulting wildfire burn scars that crisscross this province create increased risks of flood, mud, and landslides. This year's historic widespread drought is predicted to result in $1 billion of economic losses. Investing in watershed security is a proactive step towards climate resiliency, which not only safeguards our communities, but also saves money in the long run. Look no further than the successful projects funded by the Healthy Watersheds Initiative. These projects, whether addressing wildfire, floods, or restoring wetlands, showcase the tangible benefits of investing in watershed health. We witnessed their successes in real time during the floods. This isn't just about crisis management, it's about long-term planning that ensures safety and well-being of citizens. Fourthly, investing in watershed security helps to advance the implementation of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Through the work of HWI, we have seen how that investment supported Articles 18, 20, 23, 24, 25, 26, 28, 29, 36, and 39. The investment enables First Nations to focus on their priorities, and they've shown their leadership through this work. As I hope I've made clear, conditions in BC are ripe for collaboration and well-positioned to deliver positive impacts and outcomes. I recommend that the federal government invest $400 million in the Watershed Security Fund. I commend this committee for studying such a crucial matter. By prioritizing and making these investments, we can build resilience in our communities and proactively respond to disasters before they happen. I look forward to continuing this conversation with you and answering any questions you may have.
Merci, Madame Botello.
Thank you very much, Ms. Botello. Now we will go into the question and answer period. And Mr. Rézy will start us off, 6 minutes each for exchange with the witnesses. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd like to start with Mr. Gilvazy. I appreciate your testimony this morning. I think it's important that you were able to offer a bit of a unique perspective, both as a farmer and as a leader within an organization that is working with farmers to deliver ecological goods and services for Canadians. And I think it's important specifically due to the fact that we do need to sustainably intensify the production of our best farmland. We need to feed both Canadians and a growingly hungry population around the world. So by maximizing that production on our best farmland, we are able to allow other aspects of the farm to be used for the benefits that we can derive for our natural environment. And I think we need to do a good job of recognizing that it's whole of farm. It's not just the field level. You talked about some of the riparian areas along the bush lines that are maintained, the trees that are planted by farms. And again, these are these ecological goods and services that are delivered for a public good that often come at the cost to farmers and landowners. So first, I'd like to ask, how does Canada fare in comparison to other countries in terms of support to our farmers and landowners who are already willing to invest and take the right actions that will deliver solutions to our environment, and compared to some of our international trading partners?
We've had some direct experience in the United States where we're opening ALICE in Iowa and Ohio. And so I'll compare directly to the experience there. The infrastructure bill that the Biden government introduced has provided not only fresh capital and lots of capital, but fresh thinking around the value of nature-based solutions for the planet and for the people. I don't think we're there yet in Canada, and we've heard much about that, the efficacy of that program in the States. We have no such. I don't believe we have such overriding objective supported by that kind of money yet in Canada. So I'd have to say that at this point in time, while the thought is there, and while programs like ours exist and are ready and primed and ready to go, I don't think the dollar commitment is there just yet.
Thank you, and I think that's a great point you've raised, because farmers ultimately do need to be paid for a public good that they're providing on their private lands. And I appreciate that you mentioned the costs and capital associated with that. And I think one of the important challenges that we see right now facing farmers is an increasing debt load and increasing taxes, particularly the carbon tax, and the impact that that has in removing capital from their availability to make practice changes, to enhance wetlands, to actually take meaningful action on the ground. So I'd like you to expand upon what impact the reduction in capital available to farmers through the carbon tax and other taxation and policy decisions have in terms of their ability to deliver these ecological goods and services.
I'd like to answer that question by pointing out the opportunity. What we see and what we've learned from the farm participants and the farm leaders that deliver our program across the country is that they see their farm somewhat differently, that the farm is capable of producing food, fiber, energy, and ecosystem services all at the same time. We don't quite see that clearly from a policy perspective, that all those things can occur at the same time. But I think that's the opportunity. And the other lens that to bring to bear on this is that these systems or ecosystem services that we're producing on farms, they relate to a marketplace that is increasingly growing and determining that there's real value in producing these things for society. That marketplace is increasingly being supported by several of the corporations that support our program, like Danone, Molson Coors, Cargill, and General Mills, and RBC. So I sense it's much more of an opportunity that we can try to harness, the opportunity to view a farm as much more than it ever was before.
Just quickly going back to the international comparison with the United States, I know they have the Conservation Reserve Program that is widely used down there, and it largely is based on prevailing land rental rates. So as we have an expansion in the size of equipment, there's more and more areas of marginal land that just simply don't make sense for farmers to work with. So would you be in support of a program like that that would provide a meaningful commitment financially to farmers to try to remove some of that marginal land and or towards wetland enhancement or creation? Is that a model that we should be following?
Well, Alice, I'll be quite clear. Alice is inspired by the Conservation Reserve Program with one particular twist, that it's the farmers themselves at community level that know their lands and their communities and their priorities best that deliver the program. It's interesting how their definition, both individual farmers and groups at community level, how the definition of what is marginal farmland has shifted. So yes, we're allowing the farmers to declare what's marginal. We're not dictating this, but the size of equipment, highly erodible points, areas close to bush lots, these are marginal by definition because they're uneconomic to farm with the cost pressures.
Thank you, Mr. Baser. I'd just like to cede my remaining time to Mr. Baser.
Chair, I'd like to move the following motion. And first of all, Mr. Pentland, this will only take 2 or 3 minutes here. So this is a very simple motion here I'm asking for. So that given the statement made by Mr. Derek Hermutz, Director General of Economic Analysis Directorate for Environment and Climate Change Canada on November 9th, 2023, at the Standing Committee of the Environment and Sustainable Development of Environment and Sustainable Development. Here's what he said. I think we're probably in a world where we would say with some rough analysis that up to 1/3 potentially of the emissions reductions that we're projecting to 2030 would come from carbon pricing. And given that Canada's Commissioner end quote. And that given that Canada's Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development has stated in their 2023 reports that the federal government is not on track to meet 2030 target to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Pursuant to Standing Order 1081A, the committee request or order the production of the Environment and Climate Change Canada's complete analysis, including all economic modeling referred to by Derek Hermutz of the government's emissions reductions projections, specifically from the carbon tax, no later than December 8th, 2023. Mr. Chair, Liberals keep on telling us that Canadians need to pay a carbon tax to pay emissions, to reduce emissions. However, no one in the government has been able to say exactly how many emissions are being reduced from the carbon tax. No wonder the Environment Commissioner has revealed that Liberals are failing to meet their own emissions targets. If the Liberals are forcing Canadians to pay a costly carbon tax in the name of emissions reductions, then Canadians deserve to know exactly how many emissions are being reduced by this carbon tax. It's a very simple ask for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Van Koeverden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate Mr. Mazur's interest in carbon pricing. I just note that it's not just the Liberals suggesting that carbon pricing is the foundation for any serious emissions reduction strategy. It was also the Conservatives in the last federal election, with the exception of Mr. Leslie, I might add, because he won a by-election and wasn't probably even allowed to say climate change in his campaign, but it does exist. We are here to fight climate change and determine how we might do that together collectively. And it's a good thing, because yesterday we published ECCC's analysis on how carbon pricing is reducing our emissions. It is indeed responsible for up to 1/3. It's challenging, as any economic modeling is, to come to a precise number, but the Commissioner and the gentleman from ECCC at that meeting indicated that it was up to 1/3. That modeling and that economic analysis is now available on ECCC's website. I will forward it to every member of the committee. I don't think that it's necessary to formally table it or request it from the government, given that it's on the website. But I would move to adjourn debate on this and return to the study.
Can we have a vote on adjourning debate?
Mr. Ali?
Yes.
Ms. Chattel? Madam Chattel?
Give and take.
Mr. Longfield?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor-Roy?
Yes.
Mr. Van Koeverden?
Yes.
Monsieur Datel?
No.
Mr. Cramp?
No.
Mr. Leslie? No. Mr.
I didn't buy your
Mazur?
vote.
No.
Madame Posey?
I thought I'd buy your
No.
Mr. Backrack?
Okay,
So 5 yeas, 6 nays, so we continue.
so the...
No, not.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, I was... Okay, so the debate continues. Okay, sorry, I was distracted. Okay, Mr. Backrack, est-ce qu'il y a d'autres personnes là, qui
Would anyone else like to intervene?
OK, donc on est sur la motion.
On the motion. Let's continue on the motion. Mr. Backrack, anyone else wishing to be added to the list? Ms. Posey? Ms. Chattel? Just for your information, so far I've been generous with the members wishing to file motions during exchanges with witnesses. I've allowed for continuing a debate on the motion, allowing people to use up the remainder of their time, but I'm told that in the House, this is not how things go forward. Once you table a motion, you lose the remainder of your time. Going forward, excuse me? Yes, I'm getting to that. But whatever party tables a motion, presents a motion, I think we'll go forward in that fashion. Whoever is doing that will lose the remainder of their time, and we'll just be fair to all. In applying this, there is a vote at present. What I'd like to know is whether I have your permission to continue up until 5 minutes prior to the vote. I imagine that we'll all remain here and vote remotely. So do I have your consent? Yes, good. We will continue then our work until 5 minutes prior to the end of the vote. I have Ms. Bachrach, Mr. Bachrach to begin with.
Efficiently, and I think if each party at the table has a chance to offer its thoughts, and then we can move to a vote, we can get back to the witness testimony, which I agree is very important. I too keyed in on the statement from the official at our previous meeting that the carbon pricing regime in Canada is responsible for about a third of emissions reductions, and I think better understanding the numbers behind that statement would be useful. I take Mr. Van Couverden's point that the modeling is now available on the website. I haven't yet looked at it, and if that indeed is the case, then this motion is going to be quite easy for the department to fulfill by providing the committee with that modeling. And I would just add that, and I appreciate Mr. Mazur's opening comments. It does seem from the tone of his comments like he wants to see Canada meet its emissions reduction targets. And I think the best way to underscore the sincerity of those comments is to put forward effective and credible and evidence-based policies that would allow Canada to meet the target. What we hear continually is criticism of one policy. And frankly, I agree that policy has major drawbacks when it comes to its effectiveness in driving down emissions. But what we don't hear from the Conservative Party is any viable alternative. We don't see the alternative policies being brought forward for scrutiny. And I think that's very important. So I'll end my remarks there, Mr. Chair. And I'm happy to go to a vote on this motion and support it.
Okay, so we'll go now to Madame Posé.
Oui, alors, écoutez.
Yes, thank you. We too at the Bloc think that this motion is of interest. It seems that it's up on the site, and we're ready to support it. 2 amendments, though, that I will suggest, 2 short amendments. At the final paragraph, according to 101 of the rules, basically, Standing Order 101, the committee orders, I would say, requests rather, and then the date, the 8th of December 2023, but we wanted to consider that timing and suggest the 13th of December, rather. Do we agree?
December 13th.
December 13th.
The whole idea was.
And we're not going to
before the
order, we're
ministry.
going to request.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, Madame Châtel.
Ms. Châtel. Yes, thank you. Something that we need to study, it's really of the greatest importance that we do so, is the changes in Europe, the carbon adjustment on imported products imported into Europe, because, it's not just Canada that's involved here. Other countries as well are bringing in carbon charges, and those that won't be taxing their carbon will be charged for importation of their goods into those countries. And Europe is leading the charge, California as well. Just a moment. I have a point of order.
We're just asking for a report. Just talking about imports of carbon tax. I don't know what that has to do with.
Si on parle du prix sur le carbone.
Well, if we're discussing carbon pricing, yes, but go ahead, Ms. Châtel. But yes, I think we need a report on this issue. It is so important for the future. Unfortunately, for Conservatives, if we don't have a carbon tax, we will just not be competitive on the world market. So a sub-amendment, please, calling for study of the international changes on border carbon charges to really protect our economy into the future, our ability to trade.
Je vais prendre une petite pause. Là, oui, je comprends. OK.
Off, I accept, yes. And I think that this amendment is in order.
It is a little, yeah, I mean, it's pushing the envelope, but I rule that it's receivable. Alors, mais là, est-ce que vous avez le libellé de...
But do you have the wording?
This is totally like not planned at all. Like this should have been 2 minutes and done. Now we're going to turn it into 20 minutes. So
Point
just
of order, Mr.
all
Chair.
all the witnesses
I
know.
hope it's not a point of debate, because, but go ahead.
We're currently dealing with a motion from the Conservatives, and it was their decision to bring
Yeah.
it forward. So all of this,
Yeah, I mean, okay.
you didn't have to bring the motion forward.
Okay, we're not gonna argue that point, but well, I would like to see Madame Chatel's amendment, I guess, in writing. At some point, I'm going to just, with the vote coming and with debates on the motion, I think we may have to have the witnesses back. Would that be all right with you, Mr. Pentland? If you, okay, so Mr. Pentland would be fine with coming back. And what about the witnesses? I mean, we would find a mutually convenient date, but would the witnesses online be available to come back to answer questions to finish off this segment of the order of the agenda today? If we could find a mutually convenient time, would you be available to do that?
Oui,
Of course.
Monsieur le Président.
Yes, Chair.
Of course.
Gilvay?
Yes, of
Yeah,
course.
perfect. Okay, so I'm going to excuse the witnesses at this point. And hopefully we can get through this quickly so that we can have our second panel. Oui, Madame Posey.
Oui, écoutez,
Yes, Ms. Posey. Look, I don't want to take too much time here, but if I challenge your decision in finding this a receivable and in order a matter, should we debate that further? Let me just repeat to the witnesses that they are free to go and that we'll not hear further from them today. And we will organize another invitation for them at a convenient date. To all, thank you. Mr. Gilvesi, thank you, Mr. Pentland, and thank you, Ms. Bottella. It's been very interesting so far, and of course we would like to continue with questions in order to take good advantage of your knowledge. Ms. Posey, so this is a inappropriate motion. This is a motion to challenge the chair, basically. All right, so you disagree with my decision? Yes, I think that it's not in order. We are starting a whole new debate on Ms. Chatel's motion. Not that it's a useless motion. It's actually really interesting, but I think that we should now debate this matter quickly. So this is debatable? Or is it not subject to debate? Not subject to debate. A challenge to the chair. So Ms. Posey is objecting to the decision made by the chair, finding that the amendment is out of order. So we will vote on this. We will call the vote.
The amendment was out of order, and I heard you say that the amendment was in order.
It was in order.
Well, the interpretation just said that the ruling was that the amendment was out of order. So maybe we can just clarify.
No, I ruled it in order.
That's what I heard too.
Yeah, so
but
it
I'm
was
just saying what I just.
Yeah, but the challenge is, we're challenging the chair that it is out
Yeah,
of order.
but we're going to break so that the chair can organize
I
himself.
support
Madame Châtel, juste un point de clarification.
So, Ms. Châtel, just a matter of clarification here. To be sure I've done this right, you're not calling for a study. You're calling for information on the carbon border tax, the adjustments, right? You're not expecting the department to provide you with an in-depth analysis, right? This is rather a request for information.
Juste pour me clarifier, là, c'est bien.
I'm just looking for clarification on this. Yes, that's indeed the case. Thank you. Good. Chair, what is the exact wording? I'm getting to that. Ms. Châtel. And then we'll go back to Ms. Posey, who is expressing her disagreement with my decision. Could you read what you've written out, what your amendment is? Well, it would simply be to add, given that we will have environment and climate change before us to present their analysis, we would add that we request an update on the nature of the carbon border tax adjustments when they come before us. Perhaps I've misunderstood the motion then, the original motion. You're not asking for the minister to appear. You're asking for information, that they provide information for you. Okay, good. So we're not asking to have the minister appear before the committee. Perhaps I've misunderstood, but I just wanted to add that they provide us with an update on this issue, on carbon border taxes, when they do appear. This is of great concern to me because this will come into effect on the 1st of January of 2024. So I would really like to know from the department where things are at. All right, so we would just add that supplementary request. Ms. Posey, we are calling the vote regarding your objection, your challenge to the chair. So if you vote yes, you're agreeing with Ms. Posey that the amendment, that my judgment should be overturned.
That's right.
So if you vote yes, it means...
Oh, you're sustaining the chair. That's right. Yes, yes, that's right.
Sustaining the chair. I think just making it clear what the question is super
No,
important.
I know. So okay, so if you vote... okay, could you maybe express this better than I can? Maybe. So Madame Posey is challenging the chair. So if members vote yes, are they voting for Madame Posey's challenge, or are they voting to sustain the chair?
I believe that they're voting, it's the opposite of what is normally the, yeah.
The question is, shall the chair be sustained? If you vote yes, you're sustaining the chair. If you vote no, you're supporting the challenge. It's like, just be very clear what the question is. It has nothing to do with Madame Posey. It has nothing to do with Madame Châtel. It has to do with you, the chair. Okay.
So if you're voting yes, you're voting for the chair. And if you're voting no, you're...
On the decision that this is in order, right? That the whole thing is about...
It's about it's in order. So if you're voting yes, you're saying that it's in order. If you're voting no, you're saying it's not in order, and you're disagreeing with the chair.
Right.
On comprend? Tout le monde comprend?
Has everyone got that?
On vote.
Calling the vote.
Okay. Si on vote oui, on est d'accord.
If you vote yes, you are sustaining the chair's decision and the amendment is in order. If you vote no, you're overturning the decision of the chair.
Yes.
Madame Châtel? Mr. Longfield?
No.
Ms. Taylor-Roy? I heard. Could you please say that again?
Yes, I'm supporting the chair.
Mr. Vancouverton?
I'm sorry, I'm supporting the chair as well.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Okay. We got 4 on that side supporting the chair.
I'm a yes also, clear.
Mr. Dadtel?
Rien de personnel, hein? Non.
c'est correct.
Mr. Cram?
Faites exemple.
Mr. Leslie?
No.
Mr. Mazier?
No.
Madame Posé?
Non.
Mr. Backrack?
OK. So, donc, votre amendement n'est pas recevable.
So your amendment is out of order. It's much simpler for me this way, I must say. So where are we at then? We're debating the motion. We'll continue debating the motion. Ms. Chattel, you've finished? In any case, you put forward an amendment, so I think we now need to move on to something else, to another member of the committee, Mr. Van Couverton.
Mr. Van Couverton.
Thank you, Mr.
Sur la
Chair.
motion de M. Mazier.
Yeah.
On Mr. Mazur's motion.
No, on your motion with the friendly amendment that you've accepted.
Okay. How do I put this? Okay, let's call for the vote. I'm done.
We had Mr. Leslie as well.
But we have to go to Mr. Leslie now, right? He's on the list.
Oh, did he move a dilatory motion?
Pardon?
You ought to say the same thing to
He's
your.
calling for the vote. Leslie, you're next. You can call for the vote if you want.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be brief. I did have a chance. I haven't read through in detail. I appreciate you bringing to our attention that there is a document on the website now. I think there's an important distinction in the motion itself, which calls for all of the documents and modeling related to this. So while there might be an online version of one set of data, I suspect the Environment Department has done numerous types of modeling and probably collected it into this document that they've put on their website stating that everything is fine. But I think it's worthy asking for the department to provide all of the documentation as per the motion. And with that, I will call for a vote.
Okay, so let's vote on Mr. Mazur's motion.
Mr. Ali?
Yes.
Madame Chattel?
Oui.
Mr. Longfield?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor-Roy?
Yes.
Mr. Van Couverton?
Yes.
Monsieur Dattel?
Oui.
Mr. Cram? Yes. Mr. Leslie?
Yes.
Mr. Mazier?
Yes.
Madame Posé?
Oui.
And Mr. Backrack?
Donc, tout ça pour arriver à une décision unanime.
So all this to reach a unanimous decision. Very good. All right, so the time has come to vote in the House, and I will suspend the meeting until the vote is over, and we will reconvene directly after. Welcome. Welcome, Professor Weissner, Professor Oriel. You are both here as individuals. We also have with us Ms. Wanda McFadden, Executive Director of the Assiniboine River Basin Initiative. And from the Forum for Leadership on Water, we have, or we will have, because he is now going through an electricity issue. Ah, good. You're with us, Mr. Houdon. Things seem up and running then. At least we can certainly begin with Professor Weissner. You have 5 minutes, sir, to be followed by Professor Oriel for 5 minutes as well. So the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Monsieur le Président,
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the committee for this invitation.
exprimer aujourd'hui
I would like to relate today some scientific principles on the functioning of freshwater ecosystems, in particular on the importance of adopting a watershed perspective. Freshwaters are by nature connected ecosystems with directionality in their flow. The watershed is a sum of territories drained by a body of water, including groundwater aquifers. All activity within a watershed that can influence the quality of water that flows as precipitation, irrigation, or groundwater will influence the associated water bodies. While we still have a lot to learn scientifically about all the connections, we know with certainty that human activity in watersheds influences their aquatic ecosystems and that there is directionality of flow through watersheds. Thus, disturbances can influence aquatic ecosystems even if the effects occur far away, and attention is often paid to human uses near water bodies instead of to the whole system. Unfortunately, watershed boundaries defined by landscape topography rarely overlap with political boundaries. When we place our cities, agriculture, mines, and forestry activities, or where they are, often overlaps with more than one watershed, or unduly occupies a great proportion of a particular one. Recent work conducted as part of the NSERC Lake Pulse Network, sampling over 650 lakes across Canada, demonstrates that less than 5% urbanization levels in a watershed can lead to changes in the organisms present in a lake, potentially influencing ecosystem functioning. Thus, aquatic ecosystem structure and function are partially driven by what happens in the watershed, not only by internal functioning within that water body itself. We call these allochthonous influences on a water body, and they complement, in some cases, overwhelm the internal interactions in a body of water. With climate change effects like forest fires and increasingly intense storm events, as we've seen in Canada this past summer, the influence of the external inputs from the terrestrial portions of watersheds will increase, potentially overwhelming the internal functioning of many of our aquatic ecosystems. Thus, my first main take-home message is that activity within the terrestrial part of watersheds influences the structure and functioning of the bodies of water in it. My second message is that political and watershed boundaries do not necessarily overlap. I'll now turn to why it's so important to consider the natural boundaries of watersheds in planning conservation. I've mentioned the flows from terrestrial to aquatic ecosystems, but there's also the fact that there's a connectivity between bodies of water that make up watersheds. It's critical to consider connectivity for a number of reasons. First, these connections serve as migratory corridors for many organisms. Furthermore, with climate change and warming waters in Canada, aquatic organisms will need corridors within watersheds to move northward to cooler waters. These migratory pathways also aid exotic species invasions that are challenging many ecosystems. In managing the effects of these species, we need to take a watershed approach, not just focus, for example, on a single invaded lake or river. Contamination by pesticides, other toxins, microplastics, and nutrients needs to be managed also within a watershed because of the connectivity. Moreover, damming water is an obvious barrier to the natural connectivity, as are bridges and culverts. These are related to human needs such as transportation, water level management for agriculture and drinking water, or hydroelectricity production. So, politically speaking, several types of departments at all levels of government are involved in watershed changes and thus in our need to manage them. For all these reasons, my third point is that internal flows within watersheds need to be considered when managing for contamination, invasive species, migration, and climate change, mitigation for aquatic life. Many different types of human activities can influence watershed connectivity. Politically, a number of agencies need to be involved to protect and manage them. Based on scientific knowledge, the committee is advised to support structuring collaborative and scientific initiatives at the watershed scale for the better protection and conservation of all our watersheds. Thank you for your attention and the opportunity to speak today. Thank you, Professor Bisner. And now we'll hear from Professor Oriel.
Me back to Ottawa to speak today. I applaud the members for studying the role of the federal government in protecting and managing Canada's freshwater. As a water-rich nation, Canada has a disproportionately large responsibility on the world stage to be a good steward of water, and the federal government must rightly provide the leadership to do so. As an aquatic ecotoxicologist, I have devoted the last 25 years to the study of freshwater in Canada, with a focus on understanding aquatic pollutants, including nutrients, mercury, flame retardants, microplastics, oil spills, and oil sands contaminants. Today, I will speak to the issue of freshwater in Canada's oil sands. But before I do, I wish to correct some misconceptions about water that I heard in earlier meetings, particularly in reference to the Canada Water Agency. First, while it's true that water accumulates in water bodies such as lakes and rivers, water, in reality, is much more than that. Water is dynamic and exists in many forms and in many places. Water is frozen in glaciers, exists as a gas in the atmosphere, flows underground in spaces between soil particles, and exists within our own bodies. Water can be and is contaminated at any and all of these stages. My message here is that if we are to truly protect and manage Canada's water, we must do so throughout its entire hydrologic cycle. Second, while it's true that water is a resource, water, again, in reality, is so much more than that. Water is life. Water is habitat for fish and wildlife. And water, for many Indigenous peoples, is a living entity with a spirit, not a resource, but a relative. My message here is to center reconciliation and Indigenous ways of knowing in an effort to redefine our relationship with water. Now, to the broad policy failure in Canada's oil sands. This committee has been studying a recent incident of a toxic leak from Imperial Oil Curls Oil Sands mine. Much of the conversation has focused on the communication failures. Certainly, there were grievous errors in communication, but these dwarf the much more profound failure in water management and policy. Let me elaborate. Currently, 1.4 trillion liters of Canada's water is held by the oil sands industry in tailings ponds. This water has been taken from the Athabasca River, then used numerous times for industrial processes to extract bitumen from oil sands. While reusing water multiple times for bitumen extraction has reduced the volume of water extracted from the river, it has also created a problem, a serious problem. It has concentrated salts, metals, and naphthenic acids in these waters, making them toxic to fish, amphibians, birds, and mammals. I would be happy to submit a brief to that effect. This highly toxic water is then stored in rudimentary earthen pits that were never constructed to be anything more than temporary settling ponds. As a result, the tailings ponds are a massive liability. I hope the Curl incident wakes us to this ticking time bomb. There is a solution. The industry must be required to treat and release its wastewater, not at the end of the mine's life, not after the industry goes bankrupt and taxpayers on the hook, but by the industry in real time during mine operation. It's 2023. In not 1967, we can do this, and we have done this for other types of waste. Here are two examples. Think of domestic waste. In cities, we don't still defecate in latrines in our backyards. Sewage is centralized, treated with primary, secondary, and even tertiary treatment processes, then released to the environment. The wastewater system's effluent regulations were developed under the Fisheries Act, and the Government of Canada is responsible for managing the risks posed by substances listed under the Canadian Environmental Protection Act. Think of the pulp and paper industry. The federal pulp and paper effluent regulations were developed under the Fisheries Act in the 1990s to manage documented threats to fish, fish habitat, and to human health. When mills implemented treatment processes to remove suspended solids and break down organic matter, the quality of effluent increased dramatically, and downstream ecosystems, including fish habitats, are now better protected. My message here is that a policy whereby the oil sands industry is required to clean up its industrial wastewater in real time as the wastes are produced is the best way forward. I assert emphatically that it's much better to plan for intentional discharges of treated water regulated and monitored by provincial and federal bodies than to have a tailings pond fail and result in an accidental spill of highly toxic wastewater to the Athabasca River and to the communities living downstream, including Indigenous peoples. Such a catastrophe is nothing short of a national tragedy and an international shame. In closing, 1, I recommend the Government of Canada embrace a holistic and respectful definition of water and re-envision its relationship with water through the lens of reconciliation with Indigenous people. And 2, I emphasize the tremendous need for the federal government to take action to require Canada's oil sands industry to deal, not tomorrow, but today, with the enormous dangers of the toxic chemicals in the tailings ponds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Oriel. There is a vote. I assume all committee members are in agreement with following the same practice as the last vote. We'll continue to up until 5 minutes before the vote. We now have Ms. McFadden from the Assiniboine River Basin Initiative. Go ahead. You have 5 minutes. You're on mute, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. On behalf of Mr. Chair, committee members, on behalf of the Assiniboine River Basin Initiative, thank you for the opportunity to present before you today. The Assiniboine River Basin is a sub-basin within the Lake Winnipeg Basin. We are comprised of the Qu'Appelle, Souris, and Assiniboine rivers. The basin is approximately 162,000 square kilometers and home to over 1.7 million people. As an organization, we are a multi-stakeholder nonprofit that operates both in Canada and the United States. Our stakeholders include citizens, provincial and state governments, local governments, First Nations tribes, and Métis representatives, agricultural organizations, conservation, water users, organizations, cottage association, business and industry, and all others who wish to come to the table on behalf of water. It's my understanding that the committee has been asked to examine numerous topics to consider responsibilities for freshwater protection and management throughout Canada. And one of these topics is watershed management. That was the topic I was asked in my invitation to express. As an organization, we have grown and matured since our inception, and it has become clear that all stakeholders at all levels have vested interest in the role of watershed management, true watershed management, not just management within a jurisdictional boundary of the watershed or basin in question. As we know that waters flow across the land, crosses these boundaries, be they municipal, provincial, state, or international. We also know that there are several smaller watersheds that merge and flow into these larger basins. For example, the Assiniboine starts in Saskatchewan, so does the Qu'Appelle, and so does the Souris. They all cross provincial or state or international boundaries. And so it's very important that we work together when we look at true watershed management. Here in our basin, the flood of 2011 drove home the need of stakeholders across the Assiniboine River Basin to come together to learn, understand, and work on watershed management outside of those jurisdictional boundaries. This flood devastated our basin, and thousands of people were displaced, homes were impacted, businesses, and thousands of acres of agricultural land. This was also followed by a flood of 2014, which seen similar devastation across the basin. The flip side, of course, is drought, which we are experiencing at this point in time, along with agronomic drought. So it is very real, and it needs to be looked at. The underpinning of our organization is that a complete watershed approach be embraced when looking at watershed management. recognition that jurisdictional boundaries need to be reviewed and those legislation and policies need to be appreciated, but at the same time, we need to work across them. The most important thing is that transboundary communication, education, information sharing, and cooperation on a watershed management scale is vitally important to the success as we move forward. Resiliency is what our members are asking for, where integrated watershed management relates not only to water quality and water quantity, but also the increasing importance and awareness of the value of water, not only surface water, but groundwater. This management should consider ecosystem health, biodiversity, fish, wildlife, and wetlands through applied best management practice and incentive opportunities for landowners. The land issue should also be taken into consideration because there is an interface between water and land management. This can be through regenerative agriculture, irrigation improvements, management of natural areas, storing water on the landscape, and a host of other tools. Investment in science, research, and technology needs to occur to optimize water management to the best of its ability. The development of various models and tools, such as the Aquanti hydrogeospheric model, the Prairie hydrology design and analysis product, LIDAR, and other tools need to be put into the toolbox to allow watershed managers to do the best job they can be. We also need to recognize that the three-legged stool of sustainability be considered, that being social, economic, and environmental. As an organization, we have worked across our basin with various organizations such as the International Souris River Board, Chaumont Dam Liaison Committee, Saskatchewan Water Council. We're engaged in research with the Prairie Water Research Committee under Global Water Futures, University of Regina, University of Manitoba, and a multitude of others. On behalf of ARBI, I would encourage the committee to work across jurisdictional boundaries, be they municipal, provincial, or in some cases international when consider water management. Communication, coordination, and cooperation are all common goals leading to success. To invest in working with grassroots stakeholders and organizations such as ourselves, the Indigenous community, agriculture, conservation, and a host of others.
Malheureusement, je dois vous arrêter là.
Unfortunately, I will have to stop you here. You will, of course, however, be able to integrate some of the remaining material in your answers. You'll be able to share your knowledge during the question and answer period. We will now turn to Mr. Marc Hudon. You have 5 minutes, sir. And good day, Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for inviting me to join you today. I'll talk to you for a few minutes. Often when you think of watersheds, you think of lakes. I've worked mostly on the St. Lawrence and the Lake Ontario system, so I will share a little bit with you based on that. I would like to talk to you about two concrete models or real models of success in using water governance at the basin level. My first model is the St. Lawrence Plan, which came into effect in the early 1990s, covering the entirety of the St. Lawrence Seaway. It's a federal government initiative with the participation of Quebec. And my second example will be the regulation of water to the St. Lawrence and Lake Ontario drainage basins. So, regarding the multiple uses of water for hydroelectricity, drinking water, hydroelectric production, commercial shipping, pleasure boating, and so on. So these are two models, which are models of success for having used essential ingredients for water governance. Success and the right ingredients and the right recipe are respect for jurisdictions, imperfect, but you can make things work. Vision and mission adapted to the reality of the basin, local and regional knowledge, ongoing scientific studies, public mobilization and involvement, and sustained communications. Those are the key ingredients of a successful water governance model. For the St. Lawrence Plan, the Government of Canada developed it with leaders who believed in the mission and who formed the work teams and champions for the various areas of activity that was being planned. The strong commitment of the champions, endowed with know-how and expertise, was essential and was reflected in the steps taken to establish peaceful and respectful collaboration with representatives of all levels of government. Quebec also identified its own champions among its many ministries to participate in the development and implementation of the areas of activity required to protect the St. Lawrence. And public involvement was ensured through a nonprofit organization called Stratégie Saint Laurent, which coordinated multipartite consultation committees known as the Priority Intervention Zones, the ZIPS committees. This was established along the banks of the St. Lawrence and Saguenay areas as well, allowing for participatory water governance with regional stakeholders, and they've been involved for decades. Efforts and work of each table has generally been complementing the efforts of those in neighboring sectors. The second model, as I said, is the regulation of the waters of the St. Lawrence River and Lake Ontario drainage basins. The International Joint Commission, created in 1909, is a binational body which set up a regulation board for that area. In this example, respect for jurisdictions, knowledge sharing, constant updating of scientific data were success factors in the water regulation achieved to meet the needs of upstream and downstream areas. There was also the culture of transparency, ongoing efforts to maintain communications, to keep people informed about what was going on, and also to see what people's needs were to improve people's understanding of the watershed and to remain responsive to everyone, everywhere in the watershed, without forgetting, of course, the needs of the ecosystems themselves, the ecological needs. Those two examples, of course, aren't perfect. The work wasn't perfect, and a number of other initiatives have emerged, such as watershed organizations of Quebec City and others who use the same key elements to sustain their efforts. And there are similar cases throughout Canada. For a long time, we might have wondered how we could correctly manage these local initiatives across the country. The arrival of climate change has been clearly demonstrated as people across the country are directly affected by its very real and very dramatic impacts. Forest fires, melting glaciers, destruction of infrastructure, permafrost, and so on. The severity of the impacts across Canada is a possible motivating factor for the Government of Canada to present a vision linking existing initiatives on watershed management to mitigate the negative effects of climate change and encourage collaboration on an unprecedented scale. In closing, I'd like to reiterate how important it is for the members of my group, FLOW, that water governance be based on the following 5 pillars. First, reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, the knowledge creation and mobilization, cooperative federalism, the watershed approach, of course, as others have underscored the importance of, and in-depth reform. Thank you so much, Mr. Hudon. We will now turn to Mr. Mazier. You have 6 minutes, sir.
Thank you, the witnesses, for coming this afternoon. I'll start with Ms. McFadden. How you doing? I understand, so the Assiniboine River Basin Initiative covers Saskatchewan, like how many percentage? Quite a bit of it anyways. It's Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. All that water ends up, and in North Dakota as well, dips down into Minot and comes up. All that water ends up at the Forks in Winnipeg. That's still all the same, right? I don't know if it continues into Alberta or not, but it's quite a massive area for most of the prairies. And I understand that Terry Duguid is the Prime Minister's special advisor for water. So seeing that the Prime Minister's water advisor is from Winnipeg and everything from water, we always say from Manitoba, everything, all roads lead to for water in Manitoba at the Forks. I assume that the Assiniboine River Basin Initiative has consulted with the minister, or not minister, Terry Duguid about the Canada Water Agency.
Thank you, Committee Member Mazer. Yes, we have requested a meeting With MP Duguid, we are waiting for confirmation on that to learn more about the new Canadian Water Agency, which is going to be based here in Winnipeg. The Assiniboine River Basin, yes, covers a large portion of southeastern Saskatchewan. Headwaters go as far west as Moose Jaw and Regina, as far north as Yorkton, bordering on the Quill Lakes, and then down to Minot, while they all flow back into Manitoba to meet the Red at the Forks.
So you've asked for a meeting. How long have you been waiting?
We requested a meeting about 4 weeks ago. So we're hoping that we hear from MP Duguid in the very near future.
Okay. Can you explain the difference between a watershed approach and a water basin approach? You talked lots about that, but like the basin-wide approach, how does that work?
The basin-wide approach is a level above a watershed. The Assiniboine River Basin, for example, is comprised of 3 smaller watersheds, the Qu'Appelle, the Assiniboine, and the Souris being the main stem. So all of those waters converge through those systems into the Assiniboine before they meet the Red. So it's all part of the larger Lake Winnipeg Basin. If you have the ability to look at that map, it includes all of Alberta, most of a large chunk of Alberta, and then Saskatchewan. It includes the Red system, which goes into the U.S., and Lake of the Woods. So it's a huge area that all comes into Lake Winnipeg and then flows north into Hudson. So it's important on a transboundary scale for individuals or organizations to work across those borders because those waters do flow, and legislation, policy, regulations, international law all impact that water. And that's all part of where we live and work, whether you're receiving it or delivering it. It's important that you work with your neighbors and understand their positions and where they come from. That's what we try to do as an organization, transcend those boundaries, share the information and cooperation. So there's a better understanding in each jurisdiction.
Nice you touched on that transboundary type of responsibilities, right? Do you have any advice for us as we work on this study in working with international borders? What should we consider in this study?
Within the international boundaries, what we've learned with Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and North Dakota, with international waters, the International Joint Commission looks at those. There are boundary treaties in place, but you also have to have cooperation at the grassroots level and an understanding at the grassroots level. It's important to build that trust and to invite those individuals to bring their knowledge to the table. When I say grassroots, I am referring not only to organizations like ourselves, but to the Indigenous community, agriculture, conservation, all of those groups bring a piece of the puzzle to the table to better understand water. And we can all learn from each other and build the trust and the network that's so vital to watershed management success.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into my next question. I call them landscape managers. They're out there, they're living in the areas, they can have the biggest impact, the quickest as well, and probably the most affordable as well at the end of the day. You talked about earlier today, there was one of the witnesses were talking about natural infrastructure. We all know where to store water, we all know where it belongs, and we can work with Mother Nature at that time. Can you provide some advice for the federal government, when we deal with water, even if it comes down to the water agency, what things should we consider? Can you kind of tell us how important it is to actually make sure those voices are at the table at all times, and the communications is how important that communication is?
You have about 45 seconds, yeah.
That's important to the success. Those grassroots individuals across all genres need to be at the table. They live it, breathe it every day. They can tell you where best to position a small water storage body. They can tell you the history of the flows. So it's very important that they come to the table and that their knowledge and education and what they bring from the land be shared.
Thank you. Should be it. Thanks, Chair.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to begin by thanking all the witnesses for being with us here today. I have a question for Mr. Houdon first. Your organization, the FLOW, the Forum for Leadership on Water, has really pushed for the Canadian Water Agency. And now that the summit is underway, do you have any special recommendations for their priorities, that they should make priorities? My priority, what comes to mind, is to name some champions within departments, whichever departments are involved, in order to facilitate a partnership with local groups. This would be a very helpful element. That's really at the grassroots level. The image I have is that it has to come from the bottom up. The vision that the agency comes up with, the people who are there, should really seep into the entire structure, everyone involved, so that people can pick up that vision, appropriate it, and really use it at the grassroots level, out in the field. That's really what will make things work. That's step one. So the agency will have to overcome. Yes, we'll need to overcome the challenges that will need to be overcome. What do you think those are? Well, sure, the government, the Department of the Environment, and so on, or people. And I'm speaking, based on personal experience, might be protecting their own interests, but everyone will have to be open and transparent in the envisioning what we will do to counter climate change. You really need to put the right people there who believe in the mission to avoid slowdowns, internal slowdowns within the government apparatus, which will really be barriers to respecting the needs of Canadians and people's expectations. We've seen that. Canadians have high expectations. Everything that has to do with water, though, is really subdivided among so many departments and agencies, right? So really break down silos. I agree with you. I'd really like to hear you on the Canada-Quebec agreement on the St. Lawrence, which is ending in a few years, and I'd like to hear Ms. Bessner on this as well, because you too, Mr. Udon, I'll turn to you because you have a special interest in the St. Lawrence. But first, Ms. Bessner, about this renegotiation of that agreement, what are the main issues that we need to keep in mind in renegotiating this agreement? Just a moment, I must interrupt you. You have 2.5 minutes, Ms. Chatel. Should we end with Ms. Chatel? And there will still be enough time for Ms. Posey and Mr. Backrack. Go ahead, then, continue. Is this a question for me or for Mr. Udon? Go ahead. Well, my area of expertise is not in policy, governance, and so on, but rather in science. I think that the agreement, though, is of the highest importance. We need to ensure it succeeds. I think that water management, as has been mentioned by, the SIP groups, is really very useful. I head up a research group, and we often are called to share with these groups, bringing together all parties, all actors. Moreover, these people often seek out scientific knowledge. So I think this is definitely a good way to gather people together around a project, a conservation project. If I understand correctly, then you're recommending the creation of a discussion table with all parties involved in order to reach the best agreement possible. Yes, that could help. But as I say, policy is not my expertise. It is a good suggestion, though, and now I'd like to hear from Mr. Udon on this. You have at most 50 seconds. Let me specify that I have no specific interest in the St. Lawrence Group. I haven't been involved in it for a number of years, though, but I do recognize the relevance of that initiative because it has shown itself to be positive and it provides solutions. And an important part of that activity right now is the navigation consultation group for navigation in the St. Lawrence, and really all navigation parties are involved, shipping and pleasure boat, pleasure craft, and so on, to ensure that the St. Lawrence waterway is managed in a sustainable fashion. Much like everywhere, governments want to maximize the benefits of navigation. Unfortunately, we will have to interrupt here to vote, but we will return to finish with a round for Ms. Posey and Mr. Backrack. So I will suspend for about 10 minutes. Thank you.
Do you want to continue, keep going after 1:30 so that we do a second round? Pardon? Taylor can't stay?
Like literally just what I said.
Okay.
Yeah, that I'm leaving at 1:30.
Okay, alors, madame...
Very well then. Where are we?
Madame Posey.
Ms. Posey. Thank you, Chair. And thank you to all our witnesses for being here with us. And thank you for traveling to get here as well. Some of you, Ms. Bessner, you are the director of the largest research group on freshwater in Canada. That's quite important. And it's also one of the largest on the international scale, the inter-university group that you direct. So you are also in charge of the work of other scientists, but you've also ensured that that knowledge reaches the public to ensure that the public is able to understand this area. Have you noticed a growing interest in the issues? Yes, I have. We had a project recently for funding with the Quebec government. We received funding from the Quebec government to carry out more projects involving the public. We created a podcast called in French Balade apostrophe O, O being the word for water in French. And we also set up some teaching sessions remotely. This was useful. We were able to tape this material and to make it available ongoing. What we see is that there is considerable participation. We always make sure to have question and answer periods. Questions like, I've got a problem with this lake. I live along this lake. I've got a cottage there, and here's the problem. What I see from the public is that they need, well, once again, the idea of consultation comes to mind, but basically consultation for a sharing of knowledge. I think that a water agency, could look into this, could do this sort of thing. The Canada Water Agency could be promoting best practices in water management, whether you're along the edge of a lake or a stream or a river. how to ensure that you protect your environment for farming as well and industrial activities. You've mentioned the Canada Water Agency. Has that agency contacted you? They have? No? Because you are experts, so yes, and we've also written a brief, a proposal. When they put out a call for proposals, we did supply them with a brief. It seems that then that people call you up directly saying, I've got this problem with my waterway, but that's not what a watershed is. It's just problems with water, like I have a problem with my lake and I'm looking for an answer. But you're telling us that the way to solve this is to address it at a much broader scale. That's the message we're trying to get out, that activities around a lake or a stream play into a broader system, a watershed. That's what I said in my opening statement. Often activities very far from a specific body of water will be causing the problems in that body of water. That's why we really have to adopt a watershed approach to solve all of these problems wherever they turn up. I understand that there's a lot of education to be done to ensure that the population understands the real situation. They come to you about my lake, but it's a broader issue. Good. Now, some experts working on water feel that we must hold broader and more open discussions about using the resource, water usage, and the conflicts in this matter. You've mentioned industrial use, biodiversity use, protecting the resource, and all the services provided to communities as well by water. So could you tell us a little bit about the conflicts here of our century? Yes, the conflicts can be seen clearly to the south of Canada, where the population is larger. I'm not sure what the best way is to protect waterways and watersheds. We could certainly set out to protect what hasn't yet been too much affected, too much used. Also ensure that we protect north-south corridors and ensure that we mitigate climate change at a community level. We need to establish priorities for some territories. After COP15 last year, we've been discussing these matters. I'm discussing things with other representatives of the ecology movement in Quebec for freshwater. It's an important discussion, and it has to be ongoing. All right, we've got about 30 seconds left. You've spoken a good deal about watersheds, and you're also saying that the Canada Water Agency could help and that they play an important role. Don't you think that managing close to home would be best? I'm not sure I quite understood that. You mean close to home, you mean by people who are in the watershed? Yes, of course. That said, you need a national vision, given that we have borders which, are overshot by the watersheds. Mr. Bachrach, and we will end with Mr. Bachrach. Given that we won't have a quorum after 1:30, but we'll try to reinvite these witnesses another time to pursue this discussion. Mr. Bachrach.
Thank you to our witnesses for being here today. Noting that we only have 5 minutes left in the meeting, I would like to move the motion that was put on order, or put on notice rather, several days ago, that given the importance of freshwater ecosystem services to the prosperity, sustainability, and resilience of British Columbian communities, and given the increasingly severe impacts of climate change, including drought, wildfires.
Oui, madame.
Point of order for Mr. Bachrach. The interpreter does not have the text, and you're reading just a little too quickly, Mr. Bachrach, if you don't mind.
Slowly. Okay, I'm happy to. Mr. Chair, I would like to move the motion that was put on notice several days ago, and I'll try to do this nice and slowly so it's interpreted for our colleagues. that given the importance of freshwater ecosystem services to the prosperity, sustainability, and resilience of British Columbian communities, and given the increasingly severe impacts of climate change, including drought, wildfires, and floods, the committee urged the federal government to work with the government of British Columbia to establish a $1 billion watershed security fund, that the committee report this to the House, and that the government table a written response. And if I could speak to this briefly, Mr. Chair, I found the testimony of Mr. Jesse Zeman from the BC Wildlife Federation particularly compelling. He laid out the watershed restoration work that his organization's members have conducted over the past number of years. Looking at notes from that meeting, it looks like since 2021, the BC Wildlife Federation has delivered over 230 projects and over $10 million worth of on-the-ground restoration. And their partners include First Nations, environmental NGOs, local communities, private landowners, the Government of Canada, and the Province of British Columbia. And speaking of the Province of British Columbia, the province that I live in has recently committed an investment of $100 million to this watershed security fund. This vision of $1 billion fund that can go into this sort of grassroots activity that Mr. Zeman was speaking to, I think represents a really exciting opportunity. There's a broad cross-section of British Columbia that is engaged in this work. I think it brings together groups from different sectors to work together towards the security of freshwater ecosystems, and particularly in the wake of the atmospheric rivers that we saw in BC, the Class 5 drought this year that was really devastating for our region's farmers. This work has never been more important than it is now. And, you know, I think that this idea of working with the province of BC, with private philanthropic investors and the federal government, we can put together a fund that is large enough to make a significant difference in our watersheds. The last thing I'll note is that, well, maybe, Mr. Chair, I'll leave it at that. I think that Ms. Botello, who presented earlier in this meeting from Watersheds BC, also spoke to the importance of this work. And I think if the committee can send a strong message to the federal government that they want to see this kind of matching investment, I would note, here's what I wanted to note, Mr. Chair, is that the federal government's freshwater action plan to date has seen a sizable investment in the Great Lakes and in Lake Winnipeg. Of the $70.5 million that's been committed, $44.8 million has gone to the Great Lakes and $25.7 million to Lake Winnipeg. And in British Columbia, we see a provincial government that is very motivated to work on these freshwater issues, the issues of watershed security, and I think it really behooves the federal government to come to the table with a matching investment so that we can build this fund and empower the kind of work, the kind of grassroots work that Mr. Zeman was talking about. So with that, Mr. Chair, and noting that it's exactly 1:30, I would like to move that this motion be postponed until Tuesday, December 5th at 11 a.m.
We have to, I guess we vote on that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
So motion to move to have the debate on December 5th, Tuesday, December 5th at 11 a.m. Mr. Ali?
In favor.
Madame Chatel?
Oui, en faveur.
Mr. Longfield?
In favor.
Ms. Taylor-Roy?
In favor.
Mr. Van Couverden?
In favor.
Monsieur Datel?
En accord.
Mr. Cram?
In favor.
Mr. Leslie?
Yes.
Mr. Mazier?
In favor.
Madame Posey? And Mr. Backrack?
In favor.
All in
Okay,
favor.
so we're going to be debating this on the 5th. We're losing quorum now because for whatever reason, we're losing quorum, so the meeting is essentially adjourned. We will be asking if you can participate for another half hour at another time, via video conference, if that's okay. So thank you very much to the witnesses, and we'll hopefully see you soon via video conference. Thank you.